Upon spotting a pack of goblins at a watering hole, the man doesn't charge in with his fists or a blade. Instead, he activates a skill and reaches into his inventory for an orb similar to a poke ball to call forth a goblin thrall. He hurls it toward them, but it falls short, hitting the ground before reaching its mark. This failure is unexpected, startling the goblins as much as it does our protagonist. They quickly notice him and lunge for the kill. With no other choice, he prepares to fight barehanded, but it is soon clear the monsters will likely end him. Luckily, the summon eventually triggers, and the goblin's servant intervenes just in time. The enemy goblins are completely overwhelmed. He slaughters them without mercy, leaving a bloody mess in his wake. Following the win, the goblin thrall grows more powerful, boosting all its attributes. This single servant is merely the start, though. He has many more summons to unlock, which requires him to slay a vast number of creatures. That isn't a problem, as nothing is more enjoyable than using monsters to destroy other monsters. It is a far cry from when everyone viewed him as a failure who would never become a hunter. It is a landmark day for any new hunter, and he is no different. At the Hunter Association Stadium, he takes the stage to accept his hard-earned license, officially becoming an E-rank hunter. The young man is driven by ambition, having struggled immensely to reach this milestone. As a bottom-tier awakener, he was essentially born into a life of extreme difficulty. He had to study twice as hard as others just to make up for his low rank. However, this academic rigor allowed him to gain an incredible amount of knowledge regarding dungeons and beasts. He now stands at the peak of theoretical expertise, far outclassing even the most gifted individuals. In this moment, he feels immense pride. Finally, he is being granted the right to work as a professional hunter. Unfortunately, the cold-hearted official distributing the certificates ruins the moment. The arrogant individual tears the license in half, claiming an E-rank hunter is worthless. Hanel might have the title, but he cannot actually work with such a low standing. His vast tactical and theoretical knowledge is useless without a high rank to support it. Essentially, all his hard work has been for nothing. Crushed by this, Hanel gives up on his hunting dreams and turns to gaming as a distraction. Yet, 7 years later, he still can't move on, without a career. He lives a directionless life, unsure of how to support himself. His only path now is professional gaming, specifically a game called Monsters Block Monsters, or MBM. As the title implies, you use monsters to fight other monsters. Players can recruit various species and maximize their potential to stop enemy waves in this difficult tower defense game. The concept sounds basic, but the reality is far from it. Anyone who has played Hanel TD knows exactly how complex it can get. This game requires incredibly precise placement strategies and perfect methods to push every unit to its maximum capability. You can enhance your monsters, but the grind is incredibly slow. Even if you work hard to level up key units, their progress resets if they die in a fight. Death is permanent in this world. Once a monster falls, its attributes are gone forever, although such harsh rules add excitement to the experience. They've also drawn significant criticism, leading many to label it a legendary piece of garbage. To illustrate, a perfect tactical approach enables a lowly 1-star goblin to defeat a majestic 3-star ogre. However, what some call junk, others find invaluable. Hanel makes a comfortable income broadcasting his sessions, as his keen analytical mind lets him dominate the challenges effortlessly. The result, he is recognized as a seasoned pro among the player base. Monsters Block Monsters became his sole source of support after his professional hunter aspirations failed. Regrettably, this journey is nearing its end, with today marking his final session. The creators are pulling the plug on the servers. Online trolls are currently ridiculing him, while his devoted fans speculate about his future. They assume he possesses a legitimate hunter's permit, believing he'll be fine without his stream. In truth, he lacks an active hunter status, a fact that hurts quite a bit. Still, he chooses not to disclose this vital information to the public. Pushing aside his worries, he resolves to enjoy the game as much as possible. Given that his time on the server is expiring, a unique in-game challenge is underway, referred to as the Wave. The goal is simple: defend your fortress against infinite swarms of creatures emerging from a gateway. This expert is tackling the 700th stage, titled Uncharted Territory. No player has ever possessed the talent or fortune to hit this mark before, filling Hanel with a mix of thrill and dread. He starts the match, and a vast legion of beasts starts pouring from the ancient portal. With a massive army of monsters rushing in, he sends out his level 100 marksmen to reduce their numbers. Unfortunately, one bowman is no match for the crowd and is quickly wiped out. It is a crushing blow, yet he refuses to give up. His level 130 succubus queen is the next unit to enter the fray. Sadly, she is also devoured by a giant three-headed dog. His elite forces fall one after another until his defensive line is entirely depleted. At the brink of defeat, an unexpected event occurs. Attempting the 700th stage for the first time has activated a unique requirement, causing a figure called the Sovereign to rise and join the fight. This Sovereign is a stunning, blue-haired warrior of ambiguous gender wielding a blade. Hanel is stunned by this surprising development. Typically, Sovereigns function as background characters who never actually participate in combat. The monster pack attacks, this celestial figure remains at the fortress entrance, totally calm. Unsheathing their weapon, the Sovereign strikes with deadly elegance, creating arcs of holy light that rip through the enemies as if they were part of some twisted fruit-slicing game. Even a veteran like Hanel, with thousands of hours logged, is completely captivated by the unit's incredible power. As another group of creatures rushes in, the Sovereign jumps up and releases a mystical burst of energy, shattering the opposing forces. The onslaught continues until finally, nothing is left but enormous mounds of dead monsters. To his utter amazement, the 700th wave is officially clear. Throughout his years of broadcasting, he assumed Sovereigns were merely decorative background elements. This turn of events is absolutely insane. This monarch is essentially a hack. All at once, he notices that the audience has vanished, leaving no one to witness his historic triumph. Broadcast had failed, with just one person remaining in the chat room. This enigmatic spectator begins thanking Hanel profusely for the hard work he invested in global domination. The user celebrates, claiming that because of Hanel's actions, they can at last exist in peace now that their master has been roused. Hanel is completely baffled by these cryptic remarks. The situation turns even more bizarre as a mystical gateway tears open inside his quarters, and a digital interface materializes, announcing that he has unlocked a fresh ability. Hearing about this new power brings back lessons from his former instructors. They taught that although E-rank individuals usually perish in dungeons, a handful of fortunate souls occasionally develop extra talents later in life. Such an occurrence is exceptionally scarce, earning it the title of Reawakening. Understanding that he's been given another shot, Hanel resolves to make the most of this break. He's incredibly motivated to relaunch his career as a hunter. Yet, even with this new awakening, his primary attribute screen remains exactly as it was before, which strikes him as quite odd. His optimism returns when a second alert appears, allowing him to inspect the specifics of his newfound power. The overview offers him a pair of choices: negotiate with the monarch or speak with the monarch. Unsure of what either path involves, he makes a random selection. He chooses to strike a bargain, but just as the ability starts, a crimson warning light informs him that he hasn't met the necessary objective to proceed. Hanel is completely frustrated. Right when his goals seemed within reach, he's been pushed further away. The faint light from his screens gives him a different thought. He resolves to question the lone spectator who was spouting those strange riddles before. The moment he restarts the broadcast, that same user reappears. The room, to keep things simple, will refer to this unknown person as Viewer 1, after restricting the feed to a private conversation. Hanel begins asking the difficult questions he's dying to have resolved, because this individual showed up precisely when his new power emerged. Hanel is convinced they have the information he needs. Getting straight to the point, he asks Viewer 1 if they are aware of his recent reawakening. To his surprise, the user admits they do. Hanel had always believed that awakening was a process completely outside of human influence. Is it possible the being behind the screen facilitated his transformation? He continues by inquiring about the reason for this unexpected development. Why would a stranger intervene just to give a failed player another opportunity? The cryptic figure merely responds that the monarch has selected him, offering no further explanation. Regarding the motive for such a huge kindness, it is simply because Hanel was the one responsible for rousing their master. The being comforts him, saying that the heavy fog of uncertainty currently clouding his mind will eventually clear up. Regarding the fresh abilities he received, Hanel ought to view them merely as a sign of his master's deep appreciation. He ceases his questioning, shifting his entire attention toward determining the practical application of his latest talents. The power known as Dialogue with the Monarch is currently on a timer, forcing him to delay its use for the time being. While he acknowledges the delay, he insists on an explanation for why the second ability requires a fee to unlock. The enigmatic presence abruptly notices its error, and fixes the situation at once by transferring 50 gold straight into Hanel's digital account. Possessing the necessary funds at last, Hanel is free to experiment with his powers as much as he likes and solve the mystery in his own time. Having completed its task, Being says its goodbyes and exits the broadcast. Hanel feels completely bewildered. He goes as far as nipping his own skin to confirm he isn't stuck inside. A ridiculous, vivid nightmare. Nevertheless, a single fact remains undeniable. This resurgence of power was no mere stroke of luck. The strange figure called the Lord is the one responsible for it. All of a sudden, a chime from the interface signals that 50 gold has been added to his balance. This fresh capital enables him to at last trigger his bargain with the ruler ability. In an instant, a giant virtual marketplace appears before his eyes, showing an extensive catalog of creatures for sale. Checking his funds, the solitary minion he can buy with his meager 50 gold is a goblin thrall. Every other option is priced exorbitantly. The costliest figure on the list is the monarch, carrying an 11-figure price tag, a dizzying sequence of digits that makes his head spin just by glancing at it. Of course, he would be thrilled to recruit her, but the price is simply overwhelming. Yet, the ability itself isn't what captures his interest. Rather, it's how this interface perfectly mirrors the one from his video game. Small, rotating 3D models of the beasts beside their costs are nearly identical to those in Monsters Block Monsters, barring a few minor variations. Because the game's rules permitted him to call forth his collected units, Hanel concludes that the same logic should apply to the real world. A confident grin spreads across his lips. He realizes that physical prowess isn't a requirement for becoming an elite hunter. He can just let his summoned creatures handle the difficult work. Regarding the currency, a thought occurs to him. In MBM, there were two methods for players to earn money: finishing dungeons or slaying beasts to sell their drops. By translating those mechanics to his current situation, he understands he must kill monsters to gather the gold he required. Obvious problem, though, is that his current attributes are at their lowest possible level, making him too weak to even fight a basic slime, much less a real threat. Having no alternative, he finalizes the purchase of the goblin slave. A blue sphere containing his new servant appears in the physical world. The setting changes to the crowded headquarters of the Hunter Association. Hanel has arrived to formally sign up as an independent E-rank hunter. Once the clerk accesses his new profile, she identifies 4 open assignments appropriate for a beginner of his rank. Hanel meticulously weighs his choices and intentionally picks the mission that appears most ill-suited to his weak physical condition. A task to wipe out goblins in a secluded hamlet past the mountain range. The staff member immediately cautions him that the location is entirely beyond the reach of any rescue teams. If things go south, he'll have no backup whatsoever. However, this suits him perfectly. Avoiding any unnecessary scrutiny is his top priority at the moment. The clerk updates his profile, though she feels a bit sorry for such a youth who might be wasting his future. Once the biometric scan is complete, the sign-up phase finishes and she agrees to message him the necessary task info. Hanel receives his authorization and is visibly vibrating with excitement for his first outing. When he eventually reaches the secluded hamlet, the person who posted the job hurries to greet him. The elderly man is deeply thankful that a courageous hunter took on the work. After all, hardly any awakeners would bother traveling this far for such a meager reward. Nevertheless, the village leader seems doubtful that a thin youth like Hanel can face those foul beasts solo. He is truly concerned for the boy's well-being. Moved by the elder's genuine care, Hanel gives a bold grin and promises that those disgusting monsters won't plague the town anymore. As he heads into the thick woods toward the rumored goblin lair, Hanel encounters a quite surprising scene. Rather than behaving like messy beasts ruled by basic urges, these goblins are relaxing by a creek, sipping water just like people do. Ignoring the oddity, Hanel accesses his storage and retrieves his fresh companion, which is presently in its blue sphere state. Mimicking a monster tamer, he hurls the blue orb rapidly at the monsters. The ball hits the ground before the confused goblins. For a brief moment, there is no reaction at all. Hanel is suddenly in a dire situation. It appears his captured device didn't activate, sensing that the human in front of them is an enemy. Goblins immediately flash their jagged talons and charge, intending to tear him apart. Realizing there's no alternative, Hanel prepares for combat. Without weapons, rather than running, he clenches his hand, poised to deliver a final strike. Yet, right as a green monster is about to slash him, the mechanic finally activates. The summoned goblin appears with a powerful, sudden burst, manifesting from nothing and violently slamming the aggressive beast aside with a giant Mace, observing his companion nearby, triggers a realization for Hanel. Back when he began broadcasting MBM, his initial monster was just a basic servant goblin. Eventually, he had outfitted that weak subordinate with legendary gear, transforming the low-level beast into a powerhouse that defeated 100 waves of savage enemies all by itself. He called that Goblin Gon. Checking the companion's attributes, it's perfectly clear this entity is wearing the identical high-end A-rank gear Hanel had worked so hard to get. This confirms his suspicion. His Gano has been manifested in reality. Gano enters a total frenzy, physically ripping the two closest goblins apart. The last remaining goblin, using what little intelligence it has left, spins around and sprints away. Unluckily for the runner, Gano has the Raven's wingbeat boots. Darting like a bolt of electricity, the summon streaks across the field and carves the last goblin up before it can let out a cry. Hanel stands frozen, his mouth hanging wide open in shock. He hadn't fully grasped just how frighteningly powerful Gano would be in the real world. Having eliminated the danger, the gore-covered summon scurries to his owner. He makes an unexpectedly adorable expression, demanding praise and a stroke on the head for his success. Hanel finds himself at a loss for words yet again. Witnessing such a heartwarming trait in a creature was entirely unforeseen. A notification sounds, informing him that Gano's bond rating has reached 20%. The interface adds that a unique ability will be granted once the relationship is fully maxed out. The typically logical player, who once avoided physical contact with his minion, instantly falls to the ground. Embraces the goblin as if he were a dearly missed sibling. Returning to the task at hand, Hanel spots a major problem. Not a single item has dropped from the fallen enemies. How can he accumulate currency this way? Fortunately, Gano has already solved the puzzle. The summon jumps between the bodies, plunging his hands into their torsos to extract life energy in the form of dim mana crystal. A shimmering blue gateway appears close by, and Gano nonchalantly throws the gems through it. In return for these three basic power sources, Illusionary Lord's fortress transfers 30 gold pieces straight to Hanel's balance. The process is clear now. Rather than finding coins on the ground, he must retrieve their internal stones and trade them through the interface. Hanel praises Gano even more for grasping the gameplay rules so rapidly. The money safe, he gets ready to gather evidence of his success for the guild. However, it appears those three creatures were just a warm-up. A chaotic disturbance suddenly breaks out from deep within the woods, drawing their focus. The ground-shaking vibrations grow stronger with every moment. Timber is torn apart and reduced to kindling as a massive titan emerges. It is an ogre. Hanel immediately begins to regret his current path. A beast of this scale should only appear in B-rank dungeons or above. Its presence in an E-rank mission area is completely illogical. Yet, he notices something significant. The creature is gasping for air and riddled with new wounds, indicating it just survived a fierce battle. Nevertheless, one shouldn't dismiss a boss-tier enemy just because it's hurt. To complicate things further, a crimson warning appears. Only 3 minutes remain before Gano's summoning time runs out. The devoted companion moves ahead, totally undaunted by a foe 4 times his own size. Gano gives his master a self-assured look, wordlessly requesting his fate. Engaging his Raven's wingbeat boots, the goblin charges at full speed toward the giant. The monster bellows, brandishing a huge, pulled-up tree like a club to crush the approaching nuisance. However, Gano's agility is incredible. He jumps far above the ground, adjusting his posture in flight to maximize his downward force. He crashes down like a falling star, targeting the ogre's head with his weapon. The ogre frantically raises its thick limbs to protect its head. Gano maintains the assault. The overwhelming force soon overpowers the creature, causing its arm bones to snap and its chest to collapse with a gruesome sound. Exerting even more of his boosted power, Gano triggers a blast that sends tremors through the woods, making Hanel slide back to maintain his balance. In the end, the ogre is entirely flattened by the pure physical impact. Hanel is stunned by this incredible exhibition of strength, running forward to mark the win with a joyful jig. Just 3 seconds prior to his disappearance, Gano quickly pulls the giant mana crystal from the ogre's torso and presents it. Summon then dissolves into its original blue sphere, leaving a substantial, premium-grade core in Hanel's hand. Once more, the mystical gateway opens to collect the reward. By throwing the mid-low tier mana stone into the rift, he earns a significant 100 gold, bringing his total savings to a solid 130 gold. The System provides an unexpected bonus since this was his initial confirmed kill. Hanel receives a high-end gacha voucher, which grants players the chance to obtain incredibly unique gear despite the notorious reputation for terrible odds among experienced players. Upon using the voucher, a decorative trunk packed with unknown treasures appears. The system then discloses an intriguing fact. Legendary equipment obtained from the draw isn't restricted to his minions. He is capable of wearing these pieces himself to improve his own abysmal attributes. Just as he begins to appreciate his new strength, the noise of breaking wood warns him that others are approaching. A squad of well-equipped hunters bursts into the open space, following the path of the injured beast. Their tracking proves accurate, bringing them straight to the creature, though they find it has already been slain. Hanel's spirits plummet the moment he identifies the group. He immediately knows the identity of the female leader. Yoon Soo-ah, the powerful head of the elite Pengbek Guild's second unit. It is clear her group had previously engaged the ogre, weakening it significantly before it fled. Confronting a top-tier organization regarding a poached kill is always a nightmare. Hanel attempts to slip away unnoticed, but Sua commands him to stop. Her team quickly spreads out to block his exit. Following a formal greeting, she sternly notes that the unusual ogre was their specific target. She is clearly unhappy with the circumstances and the realization that another person apparently stole their victory. The atmosphere becomes extremely strained for Hanel. Sua looks over the dead beast, questioning how this individual could have taken it down so low. Regardless of its prior injury, given that 3 B-rank fighters struggled unsuccessfully against it, she assumes this man must possess at least a rank capability. Based on this assessment, she reaches out and identifies herself as Sua of the Pengbek Guild. She is eager to gauge his character, prompting Hanel to respond composedly by stating his name. Surprisingly, Sua detects that a celestial being is focused on the man before her. This irritates her, as she cannot fathom what makes such an ordinary-looking person so noteworthy. Intrigued by his power, she questions if he dispatched the creature by himself. His non-committal confirmation makes her suspicious, leading her to believe he is concealing his true nature. She then mentions that the team was responsible for the ogre's earlier wounds and expresses relief that he intercepted it before it could wreak havoc. Hanel nonchalantly claims it was merely good fortune, but Sua dismisses this as nonsense, knowing full well that luck isn't enough to slay such a beast. Her distrust is now absolute, and she adjusts her behavior. She decides to let him keep the entire bounty for the monster they had been pursuing. Essentially, the Pengbek Guild plans to contact Hunter Hanel directly to compensate him for his contribution. Hanel finds this generosity startling, as he's stunned they would willingly surrender their own target to him. Sua shows her wit by attaching a stipulation, a query she's been eager to pose. Naturally, our protagonist suspected such a lucrative offer wouldn't be without strings attached. He is caught off guard when she simply holds out her mobile. In a comical turn, Sua resembles a shy young woman attempting to get her crush's digits. She even appears nervous while requesting his contact info, whereas our oblivious hero remains completely clueless about the situation. We then transition to him speaking with an elderly local, who feels a deep sense of gratitude toward the hunter for rescuing them. Hanel is merely satisfied to have secured a mount en route for them, discovering the hardships these people have endured. Village leader wishes to show his appreciation. This works out perfectly, as Hanel is keen to find the site of the renowned training monument. The elder points him toward a direct trail, promising that the destination lies ahead and that the journey itself brings fortune. Despite his skepticism regarding myths, Hanel remains in high spirits. At this spot, he summons the loot box for his random draw. Essentially, he's trying to boost his fortune as much as possible before unsealing the infamous crate, praying for a valuable outcome. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. It's Sua once more, texting to coordinate his bounty for the hunt. He is genuinely taken aback by the level of attention she's paying him. What's truly intriguing is her choice to use a private line rather than the guild's official one. Nevertheless, Hanel isn't easily swayed and focuses solely on the chest, an item he never dreamed he'd access outside of a game. Despite the abysmal success rates, he's content just to have a shot at a top-tier drop. Hanel's expectations are modest. He's simply hoping for an A-rank result. He commands the box to open, releasing a radiant glow that reveals a variety of weapons across different tiers. The peak of the collection is an S-rank piece, crimson armor accented with gold. As the reveal finishes, the brilliance intensifies from gold to a deep scarlet. Our hero stares at the legendary relic in wonder just before the camera cuts away, leaving the prize a mystery. Later, at his residence, Hanel reflects on his circumstances. While he has discovered a method to accumulate wealth, his current obstacle involves monster training, as he's confused by the system's mechanics. His available roster currently includes a goblin warrior. His amazement, however, an ogre berserker is also listed. A standard goblin fighter requires 70 gold, which is manageable. The real puzzle is the ogre, priced at a steep 420 gold. Despite being far beyond his current means, the option to recruit it is active. Suddenly, he has an epiphany. The interface only permits the recruitment of creatures he has defeated himself. If this theory holds, it explains why only the goblin and ogre categories are accessible, regardless of the price gap. Consequently, Hanel must track down these beasts himself. While this seems like a tall order, his recent luck with the loot box makes it seem achievable. As it turns out, he didn't receive the armor. He got unique grade eyewear that enhances his attributes and grants a new ability. He's shocked to have obtained a unique item at all, as the relic is of exceptional rarity. In this world, a single unique tier object surpasses the value of several A-rank items, making his draw incredibly successful. Putting on the eyewear, he decides to trial their functionality. Hanel examines them initially and uncovers the forbidden archives, or rather, the mysteries of the cosmos. Every attribute receives a 5-point increase, and he gains entry to a new ability known as Sage's Eye. This power permits him to deduce the specifics of an opponent's vision and techniques twice daily. It functions much like a scanning or assessment tool. Hanel feels amazed by the attribute growth and finds the special trait incredible, even labeling it as wild. While reviewing the ability's specifics, he contemplates whether to trial it on a foe to verify the data. Regardless, this item is precisely what he requires at this moment. Should he be able to view a creature's precise metrics, slaying them will be effortless. Removing the spectacles, Hanel expresses his skepticism, wondering why the game is suddenly showing him such preference. He is overwhelmed by the mystery of his selection. The interface abruptly flashes an alert regarding an approaching assault. He is told to set up his protection as the game's notifications spiral out of control, bombarding him with alerts while he stares in disbelief. Hanel looks at the display and is truly terrified to find that a fresh 701st onslaught begins in 10 minutes. The guy has no clue how to set up his fortifications for this attack. He can only picture the demonic legions that will overwhelm him as soon as the timer hits 0. It's comparable to a novice criminal challenging the ultimate enemy. He's losing his nerve and wishes to opt out, dreading the consequences. The interface notes that losing to the beastly horde will lead to the ruin of the illusionary fortress. This implies that all his current capabilities will vanish. Then comes the grim reality. Hanel glimpses a vision of the future where urban centers are engulfed in flames and the planet is devastated. Losing means dying. With the assault imminent, he wonders how he can possibly halt those creatures. A sapphire gateway rotates like a rift, looking identical to the one in the software. Yet Hanel remains baffled as to why he's being coerced into this. Furthermore, his involvement carries a disastrous, total global ruin penalty. It is an absolutely absurd risk, yet the game has finalized the match and will start the clock in 10 minutes. Realizing he shouldn't dwell on the circumstances but simply take action, the protagonist focuses on his mission to repel the beasts. The title has traditionally been a straightforward defensive experience where the goal is to prevent enemies from reaching the stronghold. Imagine a tower defense scenario, though given the brutal difficulty akin to titles like Hollow Knight, tactical planning is vital for victory, including the precise timing of unit deployment. Various protective buildings within the fortress must be used in tandem with numerous tools. By integrating these elements, the most effective approach for every scenario is formulated. Such is the gameplay loop. Currently, his interface operates via touch-based command. His initial move is to inspect his creature stock for placement. It seems he possesses 5 units ready for battle, 4 goblins and a single ogre. This discovery is quite intriguing. Hanel can seemingly utilize these beings without paying a recruitment fee in this setting. He contemplates whether the sovereign's power is also available to him. Regrettably, that option is unavailable. He then attempts to purchase more soldiers using his currency, yet the interface prevents him from doing so as well, locking in all settings once the wave alert triggers. Our protagonist is struggling and begins to suspect that the game mechanics are intentionally undermining him. Wave 70 introduces Count Gular alongside his high-level Dragon Children squad. This boss boasts a 6-star rating and commands a force of 61 dragons. Facing a 6-star adversary spells disaster for the upcoming battle. Star levels serve as a metric for fighting ability and represent a creature's ceiling. Clearly, when there is a massive star rating gap, the weaker entity will be easily crushed by the stronger one. Most alarming issue is that he must confront a 6-star threat using only his meager 1-star team. Regardless of his tactics, the outcome seems certain. He stands to be wiped out by just one. Beast, Hanel lacks the currency or additional units needed for a proper plan. Out of nowhere, the game provides him with a special advantage, granting him a single fortification and a piece of gear to equip his entire battalion. While this might appear to be a significant boost, he feels insulted that the game anticipates a victory under these conditions. Despite the absurdity of the odds, Hanel must maximize his limited resources, particularly because he is a seasoned expert of this terrible game. Drawing on his past knowledge, he begins altering the surroundings to find a way to halt the incoming tide. The mere 8 minutes remaining, he works at breakneck speed, accounting for every variable until only 15 seconds are left on the clock. Once his setup is complete and the timer expires, Hanel prepares for the onslaught. The assault commences as a swarm of enraged wyverns fills the horizon, blotting out the sun. Their objective is the fortress, which the Count's forces are now descending upon. Initially, the wyverns strike the defensive wall with immense force, attempting to breach the perimeter. Formidable Count grows frustrated seeing his minions fail. Additional wyverns join the assault to shatter the fortified defense, yet this resistance is exactly what Hanel planned. His primary move was activating the Infinite Barrier, ability which grants a perfect defense rating against all incoming strikes. This shield is unbreakable, though it carries a specific requirement. It is only accessible if the player's unit count consists of monsters below a 2-star rank. However, even as he tries to maintain the shield, a wyvern's fiery breath strikes with such intensity that it manages to shatter the protection. To its unique properties, the shield reforms instantly, which is the only reason it remains functional. Yet, a major issue persists. While the barrier only loses a single point per hit, a synchronized strike from all 61 dragons will immediately reduce its health by more than 50%. This is the vulnerability, but our protagonist has a countermeasure ready: rapid-fire clicking. Channeling the skills of rhythm game experts, he restores 1 point of durability with every tap. Consequently, the only bottleneck for the shield's recovery is the speed of his own. His hand begins to ache, yet this remains the most reliable method to keep the defenses standing. This leads to a more pressing concern. How can he possibly hope to slay these divine-tier creatures? The solution is straightforward. The shield bounces back a wyvern's strike, inflicting a single point of damage. While goblins typically cannot injure wyverns, his unique gear, Haken's Spoon, overturns those rules. This A-tier artifact enables him to inflict harm despite the massive difference in power levels. The wyvern's health begins to slowly dwindle. Even though the damage is minimal, one of the creatures realizes this lowly goblin is mocking it, and in a fit of fury, the beast is completely powerless. But at this rate, our protagonist will need roughly 60 hours to wipe out the entire swarm. The real challenge now is preventing the shield from regenerating for 60 grueling hours. A test of endurance starts while Hanel repeatedly taps the screen, questioning whether he or his goblins will perish first. The Count's army clashes with Hanel's in a total deadlock between attack and defense. Eventually, exhaustion sets in, and as he reaches for a drink, a sudden icy tremor racks his frame. The issue is, he is forbidden from engaging with the world outside. To be brief, Hanel must endure without sleep, water, food, bathroom breaks, or any form of self-gratification just to win. With every action track, he realizes a normal person would lose their mind to despair. But he is unique and views this as just the beginning. A dragon lashes out in a disastrous fury and lets fly a massive fire breath, significantly weakening the shield. This sense of danger and excitement is exactly why he enjoys playing. Only 2 hours have elapsed, leaving 58 more. Since the cost of failure is total annihilation, Hanel enters a state of peak performance and takes absolute command. Promising to push himself further, 12 grueling hours pass quickly, yet the midpoint is still far off. As damage accumulates, he hopes for a breakthrough soon. His goblin troops gradually wear the dragons down. A pair of wyverns fall, though the bulk of the force persists. Nevertheless, Hanel is satisfied with this progress, intends to maintain this pace. 3 more beasts perish as his resolve remains firm. After 24 hours, only 10 are gone, then 12. When more wyverns attack the shield, 2 half-drakes perish in Chaos, the Count realizes his ranks are thinning as more wyverns and half-drakes are slain. Following an intense struggle, just 2 monsters are left. At this stage, Hanel is unable to even tap the display to restore the shield's integrity. A goblin strikes, but a wyvern evades it, launching a double-pronged assault directly at the barrier. This blow changes everything. The unbreakable shield finally shatters, jolting Hanel's very soul. In the brief moment he paused, the defense was wiped out. Now even one direct hit will cause the fortress to crumble. Yet, Gano chooses to risk everything, stepping forward to face the dragon head-on. This is arguably the most impressive goblin design ever. He looks like a protagonist from his own series. Regardless, the confrontation begins, goblin versus dragon. With an intense, presence-heavy stare, Gano commits his entire strength to crushing the beast's head. The impact of his weapon is so immense it shocks even Hanel, slaying the dragon and overthrowing the Count. The wave is finally over, leaving Hanel stunned. He lets out a triumphant shout, but before he can even catch his breath, Hanel faints on the spot. He eventually awakens to broad daylight, having no memory of when he passed out. He looks at the notification confirming the wave's completion, awarding him 20 wyvern bones, 10 drake scales, and 5 drake hearts. This is his haul from the quest, though he doesn't quite has no clue about their intended purpose. Subsequently, the interface clarifies that 3 requirements must be met before he is permitted to speak with the Sovereign. Requirement 1 involves accumulating 50 hours of active play, while the second entails a successful defense. Hanel is oblivious to the goal of this dialogue, much less why it's restricted by a trio of prerequisites. Still, he's simply pleased to have fulfilled 2 criteria, bringing him closer to unlocking the option. Next, he receives the ultimate prize for surviving the onslaught. Brilliant radiance emanates from the display, filling the area and catching Hanel off guard. Just then, his mobile device is shown, revealing 7 missed calls from his fan, Sua. Over at the Pungbek Guild, Sua's sibling is struggling to process the news. He can't fathom how a mere E-rank hunter took down an ogre. This massive guy, who looks like a pro basketball player, is convinced our protagonist is a phony. However, Sua points out the whispers regarding Hanel's potential reawakening. Suhayuk remains skeptical, considering how incredibly uncommon such events are. Right then, the man himself, Hanel, arrives in a hurry to speak with them. Recognizing that they've been standing by for some time, he offers his regrets for being out of reach. Despite his numerous apologies, Suhayuk remains incredibly irritated because Hanel kept his sister waiting for a total of 3 days. Sua snaps at her brother, demanding he settle down. In the meantime, our hero observes their dynamic regarding Hanel. He briefs him on the loot from the ogre and the financial compensation. He prefers to start by filing the official report with the association. Consequently, they head to the front counter, where the clerk hears Sua's first-hand account of him slaying the beast. The receptionist realizes no other hunter could have intervened, despite the lack of concrete proof. Acting like a typical protective sibling, Suhayuk intimidates the clerk with a stare, causing her to back down immediately. Nevertheless, she maintains that a B-rank threat necessitates a standard validation process. Essentially, they must evaluate his power levels to confirm his claim. This assessment involves a mana gauge, which presents a significant complication. Although Sua is aware of his reawakening, she was unable to view his attributes herself. Anxious, she attempts to suggest an alternative testing method on his behalf. However, Hanel is quite self-assured and agrees to the test immediately. Shortly after, the device confirms another member's D-rank status, and as Hanel steps up, Sua's anxiety grows. Her brother, conversely, thinks this is the perfect opportunity, as he is curious about the level of talent that caught the attention of the constellations. He feels that if Hanel lacks real power, he doesn't deserve the recognition. At last, he rests his palm against the massive monolith, devoid of any gear to enhance his power. It has been quite some time since he last faced such a device, like his peers. His energy was last appraised 7 years ago. The gauge activates to analyze his strength while the others watch in anticipation. Suhayuk notices a specific change just as the device finishes its calculation. Hanel remains still as the results reveal his updated status, a staggering S-rank. This shocking development leaves everyone in the room completely stunned. Even Hanel was unaware of his S-rank classification until he received the concluding prize for his quest. It turns out he had gained a fresh ability known as the Lord's After Image, which incorporates the most powerful the attributes of the last wave's creature to the user. Nevertheless, this boost lasts a mere half hour and is restricted to a single daily activation. Essentially, he can adopt Count Gular's power levels for that specific duration, which is exactly how he achieved such an incredible power spike. It was the ideal ability for the evaluation, as his strength rivals that of an S-rank hunter while the effect is in play. Completely imperceptible, to the public he'll appear as a top-tier newcomer. The pair of siblings are speechless. Even Soo Hyuk feels compelled to praise him, however grudgingly. Now that the testing is finished, he's formally credited with taking down the ogre. A staff member confirms that this evidence satisfies their requirements. Hanel expresses his gratitude to the duo for the seamless evaluation. He intends to depart immediately, yet Soo Hyuk intercepts him, suggesting they discuss things over a drink. As the offer comes from the guild's second-in-command, the gesture draws significant attention from the crowd. Onlookers are fascinated by the turn of events, but the protagonist boldly declines with an air of superiority, turning down the proposal by claiming Suh is his only necessary contact for guild matters. With that, Hanel exits, leaving the irritated brother speechless. Upon returning home, he finds his image plastered across every broadcast. A live report begins, announcing that the Hunter Association has designated him a B rank. This limitation exists because the organization forbids advancing more than 3 tiers in a single league. Meanwhile, his personal channel is filled with trolls mocking the low-quality game he plays. He remains composed, behaving as though the insults aren't directed at him at all. The audience is buzzing about the mysterious S-rank individual who defied Soo Hyuk. Rumors circulate that he might eventually sign with the guild, though word of his refusal has also started to spread. Amidst the praise and chatter, Hanel informs his followers that he has fresh material prepared. Surprisingly, it's focused on hunter activities. The audience seems indifferent at first. To spark their curiosity, he requests recommendations for a dungeon to conquer. They are shocked to learn he plans to broadcast the entire mission live. Such an act is strictly prohibited. Hunters are bound by non-disclosure agreements that forbid it. Consequently, Hanel plans to simply upload his completion proof and recount the events verbally. His fans are convinced the tale will be legendary. Organizations attempting to keep dungeon mysteries under wraps will be thwarted by this single content creator. A fan proposes the Mad Dragon's Nest, while another donates 50,000 won to see the giant's kitchen instead. Suddenly, a third person contributes a staggering 1 million won, pleading for him to dismantle the queen in the spider's forest. The gap between the previous tips is massive, and even Hanel is taken aback by the generosity. He urges the chat to relax while eyeing the top alert. A jaw-dropping 10 million won has been gifted, leaving every spectator in a state of disbelief. It seems he has a high-rolling supporter, though it's actually the sovereign's aide seeking a conversation. Hanel ponders what kind of perilous location such a massive sum is meant to fund, and requests the donor's specific choice. The mysterious figure advises him to venture into the furthest reaches of the Garden of Meditation. The rest of the chat views this as a suicide mission, as it remains unconquered. This dungeon consists of 3 distinct zones: Threshold, the central pool, and the inner sanctum. While the perimeter is viewed as a fairly secure zone for grinding, the middle lake presents a far more lethal challenge. The contents of the final area remain a mystery since no one has bypassed the water. Only Soo Hyuk ever reached that point, but even he hit a wall and retreated. Now, Hanel is being challenged to face that very same. This objective seems unattainable, even by Hanel's own estimation. However, Viewer 1 clarifies that a full conquest isn't required. The goal is satisfied if Hanel simply makes it to the innermost chamber. Slightly alters the challenge, with a promise of extra backing should he manage to finish the entire dungeon. Other spectators protest this reckless demand, fearing the streamer will lose his life just for views. To be fair, our protagonist recognizes the peril involved, yet he's willing to attempt reaching the core and retreating. Furthermore, Viewer 1 is actually encouraging him to go all the way and finish the raid, and has even pledged his assistance for the task. Although Hanel is dreading this assignment, he eventually yells out his readiness. We then move to the Hunter Bureau, where a clerk processes his application for a lone foray into the Garden of Meditation. Upon learning of his plan to venture into the furthest reaches, she warns him that such a solitary trek is incredibly hazardous. Hanel insists she proceed anyway, so she schedules him for a date in 7 days. Nevertheless, he pushes for an earlier slot. Since it's a one-man mission, there's no need to coordinate with others. She manages to find an opening for the following day, which Hanel accepts. His scheduled time is 4 o'clock, and with the booking confirmed, Hanel departs. As he steps outside, a notable pair approaches him. Taking a moment of his time, these are Myung-hoon and Sawin, recruitment heads from the Aegis and Sanary guilds. It's clear to our hero that they've heard about his recent reevaluation. Both organizations are eager to sign him. Representing two of the nation's top 3 guilds, they propose much better incentives than anything Pungbak previously suggested. He has no desire to discuss guild matters and moves on, preoccupied with his quest. He feels that joining such a group would only hinder his progress. His primary focus remains the dungeon. Regarding that, Sahyuk gets a direct update from our protagonist concerning his upcoming task. Hanol describes his plan to penetrate the innermost zone, a place even Sahyuk failed to access. This is why he's seeking intel from the S-rank hunter. Naturally, Sahyuk feels no obligation to help until he hears that Hanol possesses a hidden method for conquering the dungeon. This revelation shocks the vice leader. While our hero promises to credit Pungbek for the successful raid, this mutual benefit encourages Sahyuk to cooperate despite his skepticism about Hanol's ability to actually finish it. After he reaffirms his confidence, the vice leader tries a different tactic by inviting him to join their ranks. Predictably, he turns down the offer at once. Just as Sahyuk acts as if he's the sole interested party, Hanol mentions that Aegis and Sanurai have already reached out. This news comes as a massive blow to the vice leader, as it proves his rivals are already taking action. Hanol continues, feeling that Pungbak's current proposal isn't particularly compelling. Losing the upper hand, Sahyuk relents but gives a stern warning. He lacks data on the core area, and the dungeon's layout might have shifted over the past year. Hanol accepts this and prepares as best he can. Donning his eyewear, he reaches the meeting point, where he is instantly spotted by the men waiting there. Identifying himself as a Bulgal Guild member, Kwang-soo meets our protagonist. Hanol returns the pleasantry, yet the bald man already possesses extensive knowledge about him from the prior testing. This conceited man has never teamed up with an S-ranker before and takes offense at the boy's solo application. Acting like a sore loser, he rudely states that his guild is focused on their own mission. He makes it clear that no aid will be provided. Hanol, feeling completely unthreatened, agrees to these conditions. The egghead departs, pretending that rank is meaningless in a real fight, leaving Hanol surprised by their immediate hostility. Gaining access was a stroke of luck, as these dungeons typically require a full party and a month-long waitlist, because the others have been waiting for ages while our hero got in on his first day. They are quite bitter. Nevertheless, he employs his sage's eye to check their ranks. They are all low tier and won't be able to keep up once he reaches the deeper zones. This implies they might just be scouts. Regardless, Hanol is certain he won't encounter them again. The bald man turns around to demand why. Smirking, Hanol explains he just recalled a joke, but the insecure fools take it personally and want to start a fight. Amidst the tension, an employee opens the dungeon gate, releasing sparks of green lightning. The hunters are told to hurry inside before the portal shuts. This is actually the boy's first time in a real dungeon. Hanol steps through, curious about what lies ahead, as the interface displays basic raid details like player limits. Here, the sovereign servant offers his blessing and support, partially altering the dungeon's layout. The party is present, but the bald leader immediately realizes that something is wrong. He barely recognizes the place, as it bears no resemblance to the entrance. He's having a breakdown while his teammates question the presence of a lake. The starting area shouldn't look like this, which even some of the others realize. It's a first for Hanol, who understands the entrance is usually meant to be simple. According to Suhyuk's description, this version is nothing like the actual entrance. Then, our protagonist has an epiphany. A new briefing appears on the system screen, welcoming the hunters to the lake. The group is frantic for an explanation as the system announces the Pig Mallets Massacre. Their task is to protect the pig mallets from their slayers until night. Completing this mission allows them to cross the lake and enter the deepest area. If they fail, every challenger will perish. This is a major drawback. The C-rankers are falling apart and aren't ready for this, prompting Kwang-soo's men to suggest retreating. However, when they try to access their status windows to quit, they find they are unable to leave. The bald man has been trying to escape for a while. He's just as trapped as the others. The current tally of pig mallets is 130, but 2 have already been slain, bringing the total down to 128. A panicked Kwang-soo asks the S-rank hunter for an explanation and any tips on how to proceed. Our hero calmly says he's also in the dark, though he does have some info about the lake. His words give Kwang-soo hope, and he begs the boy to share that information. they are more than willing to assist in any way possible. Hanel smirks at the irony, as these are the very individuals who were insulting him just a moment ago. He sets a requirement for his cooperation. Initially, he will reveal his knowledge, but they must obey his commands in return until the situation is resolved. If they accept this condition, he is willing to clarify everything. This proposal undermines the guild's leadership, as it would essentially put Hanel in charge. However, they have little choice since the system indicates a further drop in the mallet population. Huang Su realizes they are doomed if they refuse. Thus, the leader agrees, provided Hanel takes responsibility if the plan fails. Hero considers this an unfair demand since he is already providing a benefit. Huang Su listens attentively and agrees to hear the details. Hanel describes the local geography, mapping out the specific layout of the lake territory. A massive body of water at the center branches out across the woods like a spiderweb. Even the guild master is impressed by the quality of his information. Hanel keeps his explanation simple, claiming he possesses a reconnaissance skill. Huang Su is surprised and relieved, knowing they won't get lost with such a guide. Terrain matches the data Su Hyuk shared perfectly. In truth, our protagonist is utilizing a divine map gifted to him by Viewer 1. It is a present from the castle, so he doesn't have to struggle much. The objective is clear: protect the pig mallets from being killed, which means finding them is the first priority. They all live in the marshlands, spread across 8 different nesting areas. From there, they must move quickly before the Slayer can wipe out a single zone. Hanel wants to gather them in one location for a better defense. That is the start of his strategy, and he urges them to act now as the population count drops. Even while they hesitate, more are dying. Because of this crisis, Huang Su's team rushes off to find the designated zone. Though curious about the S-rank hunter's next move, Hanel explains he will deal with the pig mallet alone. The leader leaves him to it, giving our hero the privacy he wanted. His aim is to scout the region using the lake map. There is a secret quest in this area with a unique prize, and he is determined to complete it. The hunt is starting, but first he must determine 2 things during his search: the nature of the secret mission and the identity of the predators killing the pig mallets. Since various monsters live here, he needs to know the culprits. Spying on a group, Hanel notices several incredibly muscular lizard men. He is shocked, realizing these creatures must be the ones responsible for the mallet massacre. His strategy just became much more difficult. Even though individual lizard men are only D rank, a large pack is a nightmare to handle. Avoiding a fight, Hanel tries to slip away when suddenly 2 idiots arrive, badmouthing him. Worse yet, they are walking right toward him, putting our hero's safety at risk. The loudmouth is bragging arrogantly, till his head is suddenly ripped right off his shoulders. A monster lunged forward and executed the human instantly. Blood sprays from the stump. Seeing the ruthless lizard men appear out of nowhere, the other man becomes enraged and attacks the beast recklessly. He strikes the creature with a series of desperate punches. His fury is immense as he delivers a final strike, but the shocking truth is that his attacks did no damage at all. This is because the lizardmen share a swarm team bonus. That small D-rank foe has undergone a double evolution, and their combined strength elevates them to B rank. This massive power boost allows the beast to tear his arm clean away, leaving the man shrieking in agony. The creature then raises its blade, prepared to deliver final strike, but Gano, the Aura King, intervenes just in time to parry. This legendary goblin has been called forth to level the playing field. The C-rank member of the Bulgul Guild is stunned to be rescued by a mere goblin servant. Hanel appears from the rear, reminding the large man that he was instructed to remain at his assigned post within the labyrinth. The man claims he lost his bearings and accidentally wandered into this area. Hanel orders him to fall back and tend to his injuries while he takes on the lizard man personally. He commands Gano to swiftly eliminate the nearby foes. With time running out, he still has to find a hidden special quest tucked away in the dungeon. Gano acts instantly, triggering Raven's wing beat. He zips through the lizard men with such velocity that they can't even follow his path. The elite goblin slave slaughters the enemies in rapid succession before they can react. Hanel, meanwhile, remains composed, observing the skirmish like a casual onlooker. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Gano is clearly superior to the lizards. Suddenly, one of the creatures has a rare moment of tactical insight. It concludes that a direct assault on Hanel is their best bet and lunges at him, hoping for a fatal blow. Hanel immediately triggers Lord's Afterimage, tapping into the attributes acquired from Count Gular during the last encounter. Empowered with S-rank strength for 30 minutes, he effortlessly swats the beast aside. Meanwhile, Gano has already wiped out the rest of the mindless lizards. Hanel commends his goblin subordinate with a pat, despite feeling the exchange is a bit awkward. Predictably, the goblin turns red as their bond grows by 10 points. He proceeds to trade his gathered mana stones for quick currency, because this marks his initial sale of a lizard man's gem. The Lord's Castle of Illusion provides a special prize. He gets lucky again, winning a gacha ticket, which he intends to use only after the current objective is complete. Gano gestures to his wrist, signaling that their time is nearly up, while Hanel ponders how to manage the expiring countdown. Goblin servant starts acting like those money-hungry creatures fixated on wealth. Right then, a system alert appears, stating that he can extend the summon by paying 5 gold for every 10-minute increment. The streamer thinks this is a cheap tactic by the system, observing how it exploits every opportunity to drain his resources, yet he realizes there is no other choice. Before he can dwell on it, a peculiar thundering sound erupts and a huge pack of pig mallets rushes toward him. He begins to sweat, questioning how to manage such a massive crowd of typically weak foes. Gano once more provides a solution by speaking directly to the pig mallets. Goblin grabs their focus and speaks highly of his master, convincing them of Hanel's sincere desire to safeguard and rescue them. Moved by the moving words, the pig mallets break into sobs and swarm Hanel to express their thanks. Consequently, Hanel finds himself directing the creatures as if he were a herder with his flock. The chaos settled, he resumes his reconnaissance with the goblin, slaying any lizard man variety that crosses their path. Later, however, a crimson alert pops up when he attempts to trade mana stones, stating the fortress's treasury is dry. He is barred from further transactions until the coffers are replenished. It appears Hanel has hit the maximum command capacity for every lizardman type. Depletion of the castle's gold caught him off guard, recognizing the ceiling on his monster leadership. He ceases his pursuit of lizardmen to avoid wasting effort. He then tallies the pig mallets he personally aided, totaling about 60. The interface reports 70 rescues in all. This makes it clear the Balgal Guild only managed to help 10 of them. Suddenly, the pig mallets' behavior shifts as they start sprinting frantically. These supposedly weak creatures dash toward the lake's midpoint, drawing every player along. Dungeon broadcast declares the hunters have stopped their pursuit and the night has concluded. They are praised for keeping the vulnerable targets safe from the slayers. Reaching the 70 rescue mark triggers a secret goal. Meanwhile, the exhausted Bulgal Guild members are losing their minds, begging for an end to this ordeal. Just as relief sets in, a fresh alert announces the start of the medication trial. A massive surge of shimmering water rushes toward the group, but the rescued pig mallets step up to protect them. Hanel and Gano watch. Stunned by this development, the interface explains that the creatures are reciprocating the protection they received earlier. Hanel is shocked that these easy targets harbor such power. The purpose of the protection mission finally becomes clear to him. He ponders if a higher rescue count grants greater security. Looking around, he sees that most players only have 1 or 2 companions. Huang, the leader, is struggling and his pig mallet is nearly dead. The rest of the guild is in similar trouble, causing Hanel genuine concern. As he searches for a solution, the system displays a new prompt. The secret quest he was looking for is finally unveiled. To finish it, he must find and neutralize the origin of this challenge. Furthermore, killing the responsible beast will terminate the trial immediately, bypassing the 10-minute countdown. Hanel prepares himself and dons his glasses. Using his sage's eye, he spots a target right where the system indicated. He identifies the creature as a unique monster named Zenkara. This exceptionally smart beast wields lethal techniques like Tempest and Devastating Surge. This discovery fills him with dread, as unique monsters are known to be extraordinary entities gifted with one-of-a-kind powers. Nevertheless, he composes himself, acknowledging that a secret quest would inevitably be difficult. As Gano grows eager and readies an assault on the creature hiding within the giant swell, Hanel holds him back, declaring that he must remain a bystander for this fight. He clarifies that Gano's lack of aquatic defense makes the lake too hazardous, as the environment itself would be a deadly disadvantage. Hanel subsequently accesses his monster recruitment interface to enlist a fresh ally for the encounter. He picks an ogre berserker from the Lord's List exchange, primarily due to its inherent immunity to water-based effects. But a fresh worry strikes him. Unlike Gano, this ogre lacks any gear, suggesting it would probably fall in combat against a legendary foe like Zenkara. Understanding that the ogre requires a stat enhancement, Hanel retrieves his high-tier gacha voucher and opts to gamble it, regardless of its infamously poor odds. He Prays the pull yields equipment that allows the ogre to truly compete with Zenkaru. Upon activation, a brilliant gold radiance erupts, causing Hanel to stare in shock once more. A wave of thrill washes over him when he sees it's an S-rank prize, though his joy soon shifts to bewilderment as the object seems ill-suited for a battlefield. In the meantime, the rushing tide intensifies, forcing him to call forth the ogre and give it the newly acquired gear. As soon as the item touches the ogre, the beast abruptly falls over. Simultaneously, a frantic cry for help reaches Hanel from a Balgul member about to go under, prompting him to sprint to the rescue immediately. He clenches his jaw in frustration, coming to terms with the fact that he may have to resolve this crisis solo. Furthermore, his lord's phantom form will expire in just 12 minutes, returning him to his status as a weak E-ranker. Despite this, he focuses on rescuing the group, though the effort takes a toll on him even with his boosted attributes. Right as his hold begins to fail, and he nearly loses his grasp on the tree, the turbulent waters unexpectedly start to calm. Glancing forward, he spots the ogre standing steadfastly in the lake, sporting a hat reminiscent of Harry Potter's. In a valiant voice, the beast inquires if his lord has sustained any injury. It offers a polite salutation to Hanel, presenting itself as a devoted follower with a demeanor entirely uncharacteristic of its species. Hanel is baffled, as he had simply equipped the creature with an S-rank artifact. Headwear of Archmage Gandor. This relic was intended to drastically boost mental stats, supposedly capable of turning a fool into a mastermind. Yet he hadn't considered that maximizing an ogre's brain power would lead to such a bizarre outcome. Still feeling dazed, Hanel interrogates his minion, wondering how it can speak so eloquently and engage in sophisticated dialogue. The ogre responds by proudly showing off its physique and explaining that the cap gifted by his master has fundamentally changed him, evolving him into a superior type of ogre. After saying this, the creature bows deeply and reverently to Hanel, and respectfully asks for his lord's instructions. Hanel replies that before assigning any tasks, he needs to settle a certain matter. The beast quickly consents without any doubt. Hanel then asks if the creature has gained the ability to use sorcery, to which the ogre beams with pride as he confirms this, describing how he just infused his wooden club with mana. This news thrills Hanel, as the situation at last seems to be shifting to his advantage. Capitalizing on the moment, he orders the giant to push straight through the raging tempest while he trails right behind him. Immediately, the hatted monster starts plowing through the intense torrent. Hanel bestows the name Odolf upon him and mentions that he is counting on his support. Upon receiving his name, Odolf blushes deeply as tears stream down his face. Overwhelmed with emotion and resolve, he vows to dedicate his entire being and even lay down his life to return the favor. Odolf rushes forward through the vapor, forging a path which gives Hanel hope for a quick arrival. This shift in momentum troubles Zenkaru, who senses that his magic has been cleverly bypassed. While he suspects his opponent is no common sorcerer, he remains certain that his shield won't be easily breached. In the meantime, Odolf hits the wall and is brought to a halt. He alerts Hanel to the obstacle, and Hanel directs him to hammer at a single point repeatedly, betting that concentrated impact will eventually cause a rupture. The creature begins a logical and mathematical breakdown of why the complex, layered seal is indestructible, but Hanel cuts him off, telling him to quit analyzing and simply crush it with brute force, rather than just using spell. Despite his confusion, the subordinate obeys and starts battering the shield without pause, swinging his weapon like a batter in a game. Zenkaruk's worry increases as he sees the seal falter, yet he stays composed, certain that a simple beast could never withstand his devastating tide. He believes no one can possess both physical power and mystical skill at once. However, while he boasts about the shield's durability, it suddenly bursts apart. This leaves the lizardman, Zenkaruk, in total shock. He reasons that only a rare ogre mage could achieve such a feat. Staring at the creature in the wizard's hat, he is stunned that his mystical ward has been destroyed. He begins to suspect the beast is a shaman. When Hanel questions if he is indeed Zenkaru, the lizardman ignores him, concentrating solely on striking the foes before him. He figures the shaman's energy must be depleted, giving him the upper hand against a tired opponent. Right as the lizard prepares a lethal spell capable of ending a life in a heartbeat, Hanel suggests that Odolf use a distant attack to disrupt him. Hanel anticipates a projectile like a fireball before they close the distance, but the giant merely hurls his timber at Zenkaru. The lizard fails to see the physical object flying toward him and boastfully declares victory, certain that no spell can pierce his defense and that he saw this coming. Yet when the wood strikes, the lizardman's arrogance breaks like thin glass and he falls over, beat. Hanel looks at his large follower and remarks that the magic appeared to be nothing more than a throne. Piece of wood, Odolf quickly says he's sorry, clarifying that he hasn't mastered any actual incantations yet. The setting then changes to the Pungbank Guild's main office, where the head is being urged to recruit the recently emerged S-rank hunter, Hanel, before competitors can claim him. Despite the pressure, he feels there's no reason to chase after some insignificant S-ranker. Given his abundance of extras, within the labyrinth, Zen Karuk has finally fallen. Odolf cautiously retrieves the mana crystal and presents it to Hanel. Hanel commends the giant for his efforts. However, Odolf modestly claims that his success was entirely due to his master's leadership and assistance. Once they conclude their mutual praise and debate over who deserves the glory, Hanel trades the unique soul gem to the fortress. The stronghold calculates his prizes, featuring an authorization for special area expansion, additional gacha voucher, and a modest sum of currency, somewhat docked because of the fortress's financial shortage. Additionally, Hanel is now permitted to deploy Zen Karuk in his defensive battle. He chooses to inspect his prizes at a later time and starts his return journey. Upon arriving, he notices that the only person awake is the blue-haired huntress belonging to the Balgul Guild. He quickly questions if everyone was rescued and offers her sincere gratitude for his help. Hanel asks for an update regarding her fellow guildmates, and she informs him that everyone survived and is currently undergoing medical care. At that moment, their captain, Quang, appears and requests a private conversation with Hanel. The man approaches aggressively as if intending to strike him, but surprisingly falls to his knees, expressing his guild's appreciation to Hanel for the rescue. He expresses regret for his behavior toward Hanel during their initial entry into the dungeon. Hanel is stunned, having never imagined this dim-witted brute would ever say sorry. He reaches out to assist Quang, advising him to stand up and care for his teammates who still require his attention. They clasp hands, and a tearful Quang vows to never forget this favor and settle the score in the future. The interface then announces that the meditation trial has been cleared. It presents them with the option to depart or venture further into the inner sanctum. Any incapacitated hunters are teleported out instantly, while the rest must decide for themselves. Learning of Hanel's intent to remain, Quang attempts to persuade him to withdraw, promising that they will assist him, reorganizing and coming back once they are better equipped. Yet, once Hanel reveals his creatures and clarifies that he possesses dependable allies to support him, Quang is intimidated and at last realizes why Hanel is determined to press on, ceasing his efforts to change his mind. The group voices their thanks to Hanel before departing. While our protagonist remains to advance and conquer the dungeon, an achievement never before accomplished, because he also fulfilled the secret objective. The dungeon's interface notifies Hanel that he will receive a unique bonus on top of his regular prizes. The focus then returns to Choi Kang, who is being pressured to recruit the latest S-rank hunter. Deputy Chief Pyo Myung-hoon and his sibling attempt to justify why their elite organization needs this individual. Nevertheless, the commander continues to complain about their own precarious situation. Furthermore, because the S-rank individual is still listed as a B-rank member within the guild records, he views the move as redundant. At that moment, an alert pops up regarding a red pattern dungeon detection, signaling an increased risk of a breach. Upon discovering that the location is Garden of Meditation, the very spot Hanel visited, the chief resolves to investigate personally. Several hours afterward, accompanied by his team, the guild master reaches the dungeon entrance to get an update. The security personnel on site inform him that the portal has transformed into a red-tier threat. They mention that local residents have been cleared out and request the Pungbik Guild's support for any potential crises. Myung-hoon yells out, demanding to know the status of the hunters within. In response, the suited official states that while half a dozen hunters escape, a single individual has ventured into the dungeon's innermost depth. At that moment, Aegis's head, Ma Dong, and Sanarai's leader, Sanarai, show up as well. The group is highly intrigued, since no lone hunter has ever successfully penetrated the core of this area before. They wonder who could possibly possess such power, until the suited man reveals that the person has been identified as Hanel.